This is Nikki in Niagara coming to you from Niagara Falls, Canada, and today I'm going to be showing you my reading book haul for June. And that's all the introduction that we need. So first of all, as usual, I'm going to show you my Abominable Book Club books. So first off is the second-hand book that I received, and I already have this book, but my copy is a newer one and it does not have the moth, or like this face picture with the moth. It doesn't even have a moth on it. And I think that's kind of iconic with this book, so I'll be switching this copy out for mine, and I don't think anybody needs an introduction to Silence of the Lambs. So the two new books was, first of all, Woman Eating by Claire Coda. This, I wasn't too sure about this when I first saw it, and I'm still feeling a little bit iffy about it, but I've started to see people who are reviewing it. And this is a vampire story. It's a little bit different than your usual ones, though. It's about a young woman who leaves home for the first time, and it's all about her setting up her new life in an apartment, getting a job, meeting friends, all that kind of thing, except that, well, she's a vampire, and it's her first time in the city, and so it's about how she manages all that stuff, but it's her food choices. She wants to eat real food so badly, but she can't. Of course, she needs blood, and one of her problems is obtaining that, because it's not so easy to get the pig's blood that she's used to in the city. And also, it says at the bottom here, Lydia has to find a way to exist in the world. She must reconcile the conflicts within her, between her demon and human sides, her mixed ethnic heritage, and her relationship with food, and in turn, humans. Before any of this, however, she must eat. So I'm looking forward to reading this, especially after seeing other people's reviews of that. Then there's this one, which sounds quite interesting as well. It's a little bit of a science fiction thriller. One Body, 5 Minds, 1 Killer. And I believe the title of the book is 5 Minds. So this, nice shiny spine. So this is dystopia. It's set in the future, where lifespans have been limited to 80 years, except if you want to become a commune. And a commune is when 5 minds share one body, where each one lives for 4 hours at a time, but with a combined lifespan of nearly 150 years. Alex, Kate, Mike, Sierra, and Ben have already spent 25 years together in what was once Mike's body. Their frequent personality clashes, leading to endless bickering, countless arguments, and getting themselves stranded on a Russian Arctic freighter. Wanting to buy upgrades for their next host body, they decide to travel to a death park, where games are played and time can be gambled like money. But things go very wrong when Kate accepts a dangerous offer and one of them disappears. Someone is trying to kill off members of the commune, but why? Is one of them responsible, or is an outsider playing a deadly game? It's hard enough to catch a murderer. It's almost impossible when you might be sharing a body with them. A brilliant murder mystery blends with classic crime and speculative fiction. So this sounds different, and I'm quite looking forward to reading that as well. So, other books I've picked up is I got myself Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, so that I can start reading the Hannibal series, because I've never read it. So I've only seen the Silence of the Lambs movie as well, so I'll be going into this really not knowing too much about it. Then I got 6 stories by Matt Wesselowski. I read the current book, and I really, really enjoyed it so much I decided to go back and read this book from the beginning. And it's about this man who is Scott King. He has a podcast where he spends 6 episodes. He does a 6-episode podcast where each episode investigates a crime. Is it a cold case? I think they're cold cases that he does. Or no, they're not. They're just complicated cases. And each podcast interviews a different person who is in some way related to the crime. So here we have 1997, Scarclaw fell. The body of teenager Tom Jeffries is found at an Outward Bound center. Verdict? Misadventure, but not everyone is convinced. 2017. Enter elusive investigative journalist Scott King, whose podcast examinations of complicated cases have rivaled the success of Serial, with his concealed identity making him a cult internet figure. In a series of 6 interviews, King attempts to work out how the dynamics of a group of idle teenagers conspired with the sinister legends surrounding the fell to result in Jeffries' mysterious death. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. Wish it had a better cover though. It's so bland. Then I have a recent release from Valancourt Press where they reprint out of print horror / thriller books from the past. For Fear of Little Men by John Blackburn. We daren't go a-hunting for a fear of little men. Words from an old children's song, but to the residents of one Welsh village, it's more than just a nursery rhyme. A legend has been handed down through the ages, telling of an ancient mountain people dedicated to evil who were massacred by the villagers' ancestors 3,000 years ago. No animals ever graze on the northern slope of the mountain where the bloodshed took place, and strange incidents befall anyone who wanders there. What does this folk tale have to do with a man's recurring nightmares, the murder of a high court judge, an outbreak of food poisoning, a strange road accident, and the death of a rock climber? Sir Marcus Leven is determined to find out, but he may not be prepared for the truth that will be revealed in a horrifying ceremony at the heart of the mountain. Well, I'm not going to say it sounds good because I only got books that sound good to me. So this is an edition of the Haunted Library of Horror Classics presented by the Horror Writers Association. I think this was the second book that they published, The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. This was originally printed in 1895, and it's a series of short stories which are held together. The thing that keeps them together is a play. A man pursued by a church organist who wants his soul. An artist plagued by repeated sightings of a watchman who looks like a coffin worm. Ghosts, wayward cats, and scientific dabblings with dire consequences. Each of these 10 tales is chilling in its own right, but taken together they weave a wickedly eerie spell that is sure to enthrall. Then we have The Unheard by Nikki French. Now, I've never read Nikki French, but I've always wanted to. I'll be stopping occasionally to have a drink to wet my whistle. The Unheard. Maybe Tess is overprotective, but passing her daughter off to her ex and his new young wife fills her with a sense of dread. It's not that Jason is a bad father. It just hurts to see him enjoying married life with someone else. Still, she owes it to her daughter, Poppy, to make this arrangement work. But Poppy returns from the weekend tired and withdrawn, and when she shows Tess a crayon drawing, an image so simple and violent that Tess can hardly make sense of it, Poppy can explain only with the words, "He did kill her." Tess is horrified. She is certain Poppy saw something, or something happened to her, that the child is too young to understand. Jason insists the weekend went off without a hitch. Doctors advise that Poppy may be reacting to her parents' separation. And as the days go on, even Poppy's disturbing memory seems to fade. But a mother knows her daughter, and Tess is determined to discover the truth. Her search will set off an explosive tempest of dark secrets and buried crimes, and more than one life may be at stake. We have Mirrorland by Johnston. Kat lives in Los Angeles, far from 36 Westerick Road, the imposing Gothic house in Edinburgh, where she and her estranged twin sister Elle grew up. As girls, they invented Mirrorland, a dark imaginary place under the pantry stairs, full of pirates, witches, and clowns. These days, Kat rarely thinks about their childhood home or the fact that Elle now lives there with her husband Ross. But when Elle mysteriously disappears after going out on her sailboat, Kat is forced to return to 36 Westerick Road, which hasn't changed in 20 years. The grand old house is still full of shadowy corners, and at every turn Kat finds herself stumbling on long-held secrets and terrifying ghosts from the past, because someone, Elle, has left Kat clues, a treasure hunt that leads back to Mirrorland, where the truth is waiting. I love Gothic stories. Now here's a classic that I haven't read, The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, named one of the top 100 novels of the century. So let's have a short blurb about this one. It's a thin book. Meet Frank Coltame, just 16 and unconventional to say the least. 2 years after I killed Blythe, I murdered my young brother Paul, for quite different and more fundamental reasons than I disposed of Blythe. And then a year after that, I did for my young cousin Esmeralda, more or less on a whim. That's my score to date, 3. I haven't killed anybody for years, and I don't intend to ever again. It was just a stage I was going through. So yes, I've wanted to read this for quite some time. Now, I've been very interested in Alma Katsu's books, so I got the first 2. We have The Hunger, and she takes historical moments and turns them into supernatural horror. It says we have a combination of supernatural horror and historical tragedy. So this is based on the Donner Party. Evil is invisible and it is everywhere. That is the only way to explain the series of misfortunes that have plagued the wagon train known as the Donner Party. Depleted rations, bitter quarrels, and the mysterious death of a little boy have driven the isolated travelers to the brink of madness. Though they dream of what awaits them in the West, long-buried secrets begin to emerge, and dissent among them escalates to the point of murder and chaos. As members of the group begin to disappear, the survivors start to wonder if there really is something disturbing and hungry waiting for them in the mountains, and whether the evil that has unfolded around them may in fact have been growing within them all along. And also, the second book is called The Deep, And as you can probably tell by the picture, this one deals with the Titanic. Someone or something must be haunting the ship. Between mysterious disappearances and sudden deaths, the guests of the Titanic have found themselves suspended in an eerie, unsettling twilight zone from the moment they set sail. Several of them are convinced there's something sinister, almost otherworldly afoot. But before they can locate the source of the danger, as the world knows, disaster strikes. Years later, one of the survivors, Irish maid Annie Hebley, is working as a nurse on the 6th voyage of the Titanic's sister ship, the Britannic, newly refitted as a hospital ship. When she happens across an unconscious fellow passenger, Mark Fletcher, now a soldier fighting in World War I, Annie is thrilled and relieved to see he survived the sinking. But soon Mark's presence awakens deep-buried feelings and secrets, forcing Annie to reckon with the demons of her past, as they both discover that the terror may not yet be over. Ooh. And I've wanted to try one of Christina Henry, one of her retellings, I guess, sort of children's books. So this one is Lost Boy, The True Story of Captain Hook. I'm not sure if this is yeah, or what have we got? Middle grade. Well, it doesn't really give a reading age on the back. So, there is one version of my story that everyone knows, and then there is the truth. This is how it happened. How I went from being Peter Pan's first and favorite lost boy to his greatest enemy. Peter brought me to his island because there were no rules and no grown-ups to make us mind. He brought boys from the other place to join in the fun. But Peter's idea of fun is sharper than a pirate's sword, because it's never been all fun and games on the island. Our neighbors are pirates and monsters. Our toys are knife and stick and rock, the kinds of playthings that bite. Peter promised we would all be young and happy forever. Peter lies. Not even sure if this is even, yeah, like it might be adult, because don't see anything on here saying that it's, you know, and there's a blurb here from Gina Showalter, and she writes very adult books, so yeah, don't know. I mean, it looks really easy to read, so we'll see. Interesting anyways. Then, this is the second book in the Dublin saga. I already have The Princes of Ireland, and this is The Rebels of Ireland. So this is historical fiction of Ireland, obviously. This picks up from where the last one ended, which I believe was like in the Renaissance, somewhere around there. And then this one goes up to, not sure if it comes up to modern day or when does it say? About 1920 is a date back there. So it goes to early 20th century. Not going to read what that's about. Then we have The House of Whispers by Laura Purcell. I'm very interested in reading more of her books because I read, what book did I read by her? I can't remember now. I read a book by her and I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think it will be in her list of books. No, there's not a list of her books in here. Consumption has ravaged Louise Pinecroft's family, leaving her and her father alone and heartbroken. But Dr. Pinecroft has plans for a revolutionary experiment. Convinced that sea air will prove to be the cure his wife and children need, he arranges to house a group of prisoners suffering from the disease in the caves beneath his new Cornish home. While he devotes himself to his controversial medical trials, Louise finds herself increasingly discomfited by the strange tales her new maid tells of the fairies that hunt the land, searching for those they can steal away to their realm. 40 years later, Hester arrives at Morvoran House to take up a position as nurse to the now partially paralyzed and mute Miss Pinecroft. Hester has fled to Cornwall to try to escape her past, but surrounded by superstitious staff enacting bizarre rituals, she soon discovers her new home may be just as dangerous as her last. So, very exciting gothic we got there. I picked up the best American science fiction and fantasy of 2019. I always like these best of books. And I got the classic book We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I hope I said that close to being right. So this was written in, I think, the 1930s. Let's see if I have the original date on here. 1920. And this is a apocalyptic book. I'm not going to read the back of it, but it was written 20-some years before 1984, and I believe George Orwell kind of took this as his muse, or whatever you call it. So yeah, I won't read the back of that either. And we have The Spirit Photographer by John Michael Varis. And this is another Gothic, I believe this one is. Boston, 1870. Photographer Edward Moody runs a booming business capturing the images of the spirits of the departed in his portraits. He lures grieving widows and mourning mothers into his studio with promises of catching the ghosts of their deceased loved ones with his camera. Despite the whispers around town that Moody is a fraud of the basest kind, no one has been able to expose him, and word of his gift has spread, earning him money, fame, and a growing list of illustrious clients. One day, while developing the negative from a sitting to capture the spirit of the young son of an abolitionist senator, Moody is shocked to see a different spectral figure develop before his eyes. Instead of the staged image of the boy he was expecting, the camera has seemingly captured the spirit of a beautiful young woman. Is it possible that the spirit photographer caught a real ghost? When Moody recognizes the woman in the photograph as the daughter of an escaped slave he knew long ago, he is compelled to travel from Boston to the Louisiana bayous to resolve their unfinished business and perhaps save his soul. But more than one person is out to stop him. We have a Dean Koontz book, Phantoms. That was large print for a minute, but it's not. What have we got? They find the town silent, apparently abandoned. Then they find the first body, strangely swollen and still warm. 150 are dead. 350 are missing. But the terror has only begun in the tiny mountain town of Snowfield, California. At first they think it is the work of a maniac, or terrorists, or toxic contamination, or a bizarre new disease. But they uncover the truth, and they see it in the flesh. It is worse than anything they ever dared to imagine. Ooh. So this next one is Japanese fiction. It isn't scary or creepy or anything like that. It's just proper fiction. He is a brilliant math professor with a peculiar problem. Ever since a traumatic head injury, he has lived with only 80 minutes of short-term memory. She is an astute young housekeeper with a 10-year-old son who is hired to care for him. And every morning as the professor and the housekeeper are introduced to each other anew, a strange and beautiful relationship blossoms between them. Though he cannot hold memories for long, his brain is like a tape that begins to erase itself every 80 minutes. The professor's mind is still alive with elegant equations from the past, and the numbers in all of their articulate order reveal a sheltering and poetic world to both the housekeeper and her young son. The professor is capable of discovering connections between the simplest of quantities, like the housekeeper's shoe size, and the universe at large, drawing their lives ever closer and more profoundly together, even as his memory slips away. So I've read a lot of Jennifer McMahon's books, but I haven't read her last couple of books, so this is me catching up with it here, with The Drowning Kind. When social worker Jax receives 9 missed calls from her manic and increasingly out-of-touch older sister Lexi, she assumes it's just another one of her episodes. But the next day, Lexi is dead, drowned in the pool at their grandmother's estate. Going through her sister's things, Jax learns that Lexi was researching the history of their family and the property. She dives deeper into the research herself and discovers that the land holds a far darker past than she could ever have imagined. In 1929, 37-year-old newlywed Ethel Monroe hopes desperately for a baby. In an effort to distract her, Ethel's husband whisks her away on a trip to Vermont, where she learns that a natural springs showcased by the newest hotel in the Northeast is rumored to grant wishes. But she never suspects that the spring takes in equal measure to what it gives. Yes, nothing is ever for free. This next one here, What Big Teeth, this is a Yeah book, but isn't that a stunning cover? What Big Teeth. Eleanor Zarin has been estranged from her wild, bloodthirsty family for years. When she flees boarding school after a horrifying incident, she goes to the only place she thinks is safe, the home she left behind. But when she gets there, she struggles to fit in with her monstrous relatives who prowl the woods around the family estate and read fortunes in the guts of birds. Eleanor finds herself desperately trying to hold the family together, all the while trying to make sense of a re-emerging power that seems increasingly linked to the reason she was sent away in the first place. In order to save them all, Eleanor must learn to embrace her family of monsters and tame the darkness inside her. So this is actually called a fantasy, but I think it's going to have something to do with werewolves. So I'm not sure. Don't really know. Then we have You. This is based on, well, it's not based on, totally wrong there. This has been made into a Netflix show, which I have not seen. And this is by Caroline Kepnes. So just in case you haven't seen the show and don't know what it's about like me, let's read the back. When a beautiful aspiring writer strides into the East Village bookstore where Joe Goldberg works, he does what anyone would do. He Googles the name on her credit card. There is only one Guinevere Beck in New York City. She has a public Facebook account and tweets incessantly, telling Joe everything he needs to know. She is simply Beck to her friends. She went to Brown University. She lives on Bank Street, and she'll be at a bar in Brooklyn tonight, the perfect place for a chance meeting. As Joe invisibly and obsessively takes control of Beck's life, he begins quietly removing the obstacles that stand in the way of their love. Joe will do anything to ensure Beck finds herself in his waiting arms, even if it means murder. Really looking forward to reading that. This next one here is a new release for 22, Black Tide by Casey Jones. It was just another day at the beach. Then the world ended. Mike and Beth were strangers before the night of the meteor shower. Chance made them neighbors. A bottle of champagne brought them together, and a shared need for human connection sparked something more. Following their drunken and desperate one-night stand, the two discover the astronomical event has left widespread destruction in its wake. But the cosmic light show was only part of something much bigger and far more terrifying. When a lost car key leaves them stranded on an empty stretch of Oregon coast, and inhuman screams echo from the dunes, when the rising tide reaches for their car and unspeakable horrors close in around them, these two self-destructive souls must fight to survive a nightmare of apocalyptic scale. Oh, I just love apocalypse books. And here's one that has been recommended to me over and over again. And I believe this is a Yeah book as well. But it's been read by a lot of adults. A little bit of sticker goo on there. Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar. When Quinn and her father moved to a tiny town with a weird clown for a mascot, they're looking for a fresh start. But ever since the town's only factory shut down, Kettle Springs has been cracked in half. Most of the town believes that the kids are to blame. After all, the juniors and seniors at Kettle Springs High are the ones who threw the party where Arthur Hill's daughter died. They're the ones who set the abandoned factory on fire and who spend all their time posting pranks on YouTube. They have no respect and no idea what it means to work hard. For the kids, it's the other way around, and now Kettle Springs is caught in a constant battle between old and new, tradition and progress. It's a fight that looks like it will destroy the town until one homicidal clown with a pork pie hat and a red nose decides to end it all for good. Because if your opponents all die, you win the debate by default. The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Now have I read Rachel Hawkins? I think I read one thing by her. Maybe I haven't. So anyways, this is kind of a take on the Jane Eyre story. Meet Jane. Newly arrived to Birmingham, Alabama, Jane is a broke dog walker in Thornfield Estates, a gated community full of McMansions, shiny SUVs, and bored housewives. The kind of place where no one will notice if Jane lifts the discarded tchotchkes and jewelry off the side tables of her well-heeled clients. No one will think to ask if Jane is even her real name. Meet Eddie. Recently widowed, he has become the Thornfield Estate's most mysterious resident. Ever since his wife, Bee, drowned in a boating accident with her best friend, their bodies lost to the deep, Jane can't help but see an opportunity in Eddie. Not only is he rich, brooding, and handsome, but he also could offer her the kind of protection she craves. Yet as the two fall for each other, Jane is haunted by the legend of Bee, an ambitious beauty and successful entrepreneur with a rags-to-riches origin story. How can she, plain Jane, ever measure up? And can Jane win Eddie's heart before her past, or his, catches up with her? Eenie, Meenie by M.J. Arledge. Words are always so big in books these days. So this is the first in a series. What year was this written? I don't know if there's... Let's see. This came out in 2014, so there's probably a few of these out now. Two people are abducted, imprisoned, and left with a gun. As hunger and thirst set in, only one walks away alive. It's a game more twisted than any Detective Inspector Helen Grace has ever seen. If she hadn't spoken with the shattered survivors herself, she almost wouldn't believe them. Helen is familiar with the dark sides of human nature, including her own, but this case with its seemingly random victims has her baffled. But as more people go missing, nothing will be more terrifying than when it all starts making sense. One bloody thing after another. And this is a very short one, almost a novella. This is horror. Jackie has a map of the city on the wall of her bedroom with a green pin for each of her trees. She has a first kiss tree and a broken arm tree. She has a car accident tree. There is a tree at the hospital where Jackie's mother passed away into the long good night. When one of them gets cut down, Jackie doesn't know what to do, but she doesn't let that stop her. She picks up the biggest rock she can carry and puts it through the window of a car. Smash! She intends to leave before the police arrive, but they're early. Anne is Jackie's best friend, but she's got problems of her own. Her mother is chained up in the basement. How do you bring that up in casual conversation? Oh, sorry I've been so distant, Jackie. My mother has more teeth than she's supposed to, and she won't eat anything that's already dead. Anne and her sister Margaret don't have much of a choice here. Their mother needs to be fed. It isn't easy, but this is family. It's not supposed to be easy. It'll be okay as long as Margaret and Anne still have each other. Add in a cantankerous old man, his powerfully stupid dog, a headless ghost, a schoolgirl crush, and a few unsettling visits from Jackie's own dead mother, and you'll find that this is a different sort of horror novel from the ones you're used to. Then we've got the second book in the Inheritance Games, The Hawthorne Legacy, A Deadly Game, A Puzzle to Solve, A Fortunate Stake. So I'm not going to read anything about this one because it's a sequel and I don't want to know anything that happens in that. The Fact of Body, A Murder and a Memoir by Alexandria Marziano-Lesnevich. Now, is this true crime? Yes. This is true crime. This groundbreaking, heart-stopping work, 10 years in the making, shows how the law is more personal than we would like to believe, and the truth more complicated and powerful than we could ever imagine. Before Alexandria Marziano-Lesnevich begins a summer job at a law firm in Louisiana, working to help defend men accused of murder, she thinks her staunchly anti-death penalty position is clear. But the moment convicted murderer Rick Langley's face flashes on the screen as she reviews old videotapes, she is overcome with the feeling of wanting him to die. Shocked by her reaction, she digs deeper into the case, and something in his story is unsettlingly, uncannily familiar. By examining the details of Ricky's case, Alexandria is forced to face her own history, to unearth long-buried family secrets and reckon with the past. This, oh yeah, it's true crime. It kind of sounds like it just kind of sounds like it's fiction, but it's not. Got notes at the back. Or I don't know. It might be fiction. Okay, no, it's got a legal notice in the front. Let's see. Yes, okay, this is true crime. It just looks so much like a fiction book. That's weird. Mind of Winter by Laura Kasich. I don't remember what this one was about. It was 13 years ago that Holly and her husband Eric went to Siberia to adopt the sweet, dark-haired child they wanted so desperately. How they laughed at the nurses of Pokorovo Orphanage No. 2 with their garlic and superstitions, and ignored their insistent warnings. After all, their fairy princess, Tatiana, baby Toddy, was perfect. As the snow falls, enveloping the world in its white silence, Holly senses that something is not right, and has never been right in the years since they brought their daughter home. She and Tatiana are alone. Eric is stuck on the roads, and none of the other guests for Christmas dinner will be able to make it through the snow. With each passing hour, the blizzard rages and Tatiana's mood darkens, her behavior becoming increasingly disturbing, until in every mother's worst nightmare, Holly finds she no longer recognizes her daughter. And here's another author that I've always wanted to read, Megan Miranda. So I'm going to start with The Girl from Widow Hills. Arden Maynor was just a child when she was swept away while sleepwalking during a terrifying rainstorm and went missing for days. Strangers and friends, neighbors and rescue workers set up search parties and held vigils, praying for her safe return. Against all odds, she was found, alive, clinging to a storm drain. The Girl from Widow Hills was a living miracle. Arden's mother wrote a book. Fame followed. Fans and fan letters, creeps and stalkers, and every year the anniversary. It all becomes too much. As soon as she was old enough, Arden changed her name and disappeared from the public eye. I'm not going to read the rest, but obviously someone comes along who knows her past, and we'll see if things catch up with her. Right, so we're just got 2 small piles left to go here. So we've got Black Chalk by Christopher J. Yates. Oh yeah, it looks like it's dusty from chalk. That was funny. Makes me wipe it. Set in New York at Oxford University, a group of 6 students in an elaborate game of dares and consequences with tragic results. I think that's all we need to read, isn't it? It's a riveting psychological thriller. Read it fast. Then I got the Gulag Archipelago, the abridged, obviously, authorized abridged edition. This is just something that I've always wanted to read, and so now I have it. That's all I need to say about that. I've read Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn. I've read, what was his other book? Oh, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. I've read that, which is fiction. And this is obviously true about the Gulag prisons. So I got myself another Paul Tremblay book because everybody seems to like him so much, but I read, what did I read? The ghost one. A Head Full of Ghosts, and I just didn't think it was anything special. So let's see what this one is about. In a matter of weeks, Massachusetts has been overrun by an insidious virus that is spread by saliva. Oh, good. I love saliva. I love virus books. Those infected, both humans and animals, quickly lose their minds and are driven to bite and infect as many others as they can before they die or are killed. Emergency protocols are faltering, rations are being distributed, and the Commonwealth is under quarantine and curfew to try to limit the spread of the new virus. Hospitals are inundated with the sick and hysteria has taken hold. Dr. Romola Rams Sherman receives a frantic phone call from Natalie, her best friend from college, who is due to give birth in a matter of days. Natalie's husband has been killed, viciously attacked by an infected neighbor, and in a failed attempt to save him, Nats too was bitten. Her only chance of survival is to get to a hospital as quickly as possible to receive a rabies vaccine and to deliver her child. The clock is ticking for Nats and the baby. The fight to save their lives becomes a desperate odyssey as these friends make their way through a hostile landscape filled with unexpected dangers beyond their worst nightmares. But even if Nats gets the vaccine, will it be too late? Then we have some nonfiction here, Broadmoor Women, Tales from Britain's First Criminal Lunatic Asylum. And that pretty much tells us what this is about. We've got some pictures in the middle, so I like reading about Broadmoor. And I've got this chunkster here, The Living Dead, a new novel by George A. Romero and Daniel Kraus. So I believe this is what he was working on. Was he actually working on this when he died, or is this just got his name on it because of his... Well, that's so cool that there's color on the title page. I never see that in paperback books. Yeah, so I'm not sure if George actually did writing on this or if it's just based on his character, so that's why his name is on it. So I'm not going to read that, obviously. It's about zombies. Just a couple of books left now. 3. So I've heard about Peter Swanson, and I want to give him a try as well. So we've got Every Vow You Break. I never get any books that are pretty when they're naked. A bride's dream honeymoon becomes a nightmare when a man with whom she's had a regrettable one-night stand shows up in this electrifying psychological thriller from the acclaimed author of 8 Perfect Murders. Oh yeah, so this is the one about how when Abigail is on her, she's having her bachelorette party, and she has a one-night stand, and then she regrets what she did, and she goes forward with her wedding, and then when they're on honeymoon, that guy returns, and he is stalking her now and telling her that the two of them belong together. Then we have The Plot by Jean Hanf Corolitz. And I know this is about a guy who is a teacher, and one of his students shows him his manuscript, and he thinks it's absolutely fantastic, and that this guy is going to like be a great author someday, and he's really jealous and stuff. And so as the years go by, he kind of wonders, did that guy ever publish his book? Why haven't I heard of it? And he looks him up, and the kid died not too soon after the two of them spoke. So he decides to take the idea from that book and write it himself. So he writes it, and he becomes famous and stuff. And then one day he gets a note. Was it a note? Yes, that tells him, oh, here's what it says. An email. And it says, "You are a thief." And it goes from there. And the very last book is a John Douglas one. I read Mindhunter a long time ago, before this TV show came out. And this is another one of his books, The Killer's Shadow. Oh, this is a series that he's writing. There's a couple of them out right now. And this is one of them. From the Cases, they're called From the Cases of the FBI's Original Mindhunter. And this one is The Killer's Shadow. This is the large print edition. I wonder if I don't need my glasses to read it. Oh yeah, I still need my glasses to read it. And there you have it, folks. Those are the books I got to add to my TBR in June. So let's get reading. And until next time, bye-bye.